Right. And so, yeah, it's Unit 1, Lesson 24, Apply Ideas. We're going to find out what that entails here as we go along. So, by the time that we complete this lesson, we will be able to predict outcomes and determine how circumstances affect a character or a situation. So, let's take a look here and see what that means. Their audio.
You have practiced making inferences in fiction, Lesson 21, and used that information to draw conclusions, Lesson 23. By gathering details, thinking of reasonable explanations for inferences and conclusions, and considering their significance, you are applying ideas. Applying ideas can help you predict events or outcomes and determine how a character or situation would be similar or different in other circumstances. For example, when you determine major elements of a character's personality, you can predict how he or she will act in a different situation. Applying ideas to a text can help you understand the text as a whole.
Okay, so it's another one of those, sort of critical thinking ideas, and building on what we've already done with making inferences and information to draw conclusions. We can also use what we learn to apply ideas, and how they put it here. It can help you predict events or outcomes and determine how a character or situation would be similar or different in other circumstances. Um, when you buy gifts for somebody, right, you are applying ideas. Right, that's the whole idea. You'll see this, like, if you searching, like gift ideas. But for Christmas, or whenever your children's birthdays and stuff, you think about them as a person, right? Just like you would a character, and you put a character in a different situation. How are they going to react? How is your child going to react to the presents you buy them? Because you think about, right, you use the information you have. Like, for instance, my daughter, she's 12, right? So right away, you start thinking about, what's going to be good for a 12-year-old. She's creative. She wants to go to art school. She likes to read. You think about those things when you're thinking about gifts. So typically, when it comes to her birthday or Christmas, things we get her revolve around her interests, like sketch pads or new markers. Or last year we got her a digital drawing pad so she could use it on her computer. Right. So that's applying ideas to buy gifts. You could do the same thing for, thinking about me. I've mentioned several times that, keep my apartment cool, and I don't care much for the heat. So to put me in a different situation, well, how's Matt going to react when it's 95 degrees outside and it's 90% humidity? Well, Matt's probably going to sweat a lot, and he's going to curse a lot too, because he's not going to enjoy it very much. And that's the idea here. How are these people, how characters are going to react to new situations? That's all part of applying an idea. So let's take a look here. At our first passage is the concert affects Paul. So think about our title there. What is that going to mean? Questioning, what kind of effect is a concert going to have on Paul? So when the symphony began, Paul sank into one of the rear seats with a long sigh of relief. It was not that symphonies as such meant anything in particular to Paul, but the first sigh of the instrument seemed to free some hilarious and potent spirit within him, something that struggled there like the genie in the bottle found by the errant fisherman. He felt a sudden zest of life, the lights danced before his eyes, and the concert hall blazed into unimaginable splendor. When the soprano soloist came on, Paul half closed his eyes and gave himself up to the peculiar stimulus such personages always had for him. The soloist chanced to be a German woman, by no means in her first youth and the mother of many children, but she wore an elaborate gown and a tiara, and above all, She had that indefinable air of achievement, that world shine upon her, which, in Paul's eyes, made her a veritable queen of romance. Over yonder, the Shenley, in its vacant stretch, loomed big and square through the fine rain, the windows of its 12 stories glowing like those of a lighted cardboard house under a Christmas tree. All the actors and singers of the better class stayed there when they were in the city. Paul had often hung about the hotel, watching the people go in and out, longing to enter and leave schoolmasters and dull care behind him forever. That's from Paul's Case by Willa. So Willa Cather, 1905. And this bracket here, this very large passage of the first paragraph that it's pointing to. So the music has a particular effect on Paul. At first, the music appears to give him a kind of joy that he otherwise does not have. So, we can infer that Paul enjoys music, or even a conclusion there based on this. Not necessarily that he's particularly fond of symphonies, but the music, the soloist, the opera singer, all of that is something that he enjoys. And then the underlying piece at the bottom, Paul had often hung about the hotel, watching the people go in and out, longing to enter and leave schoolmasters and dull care behind him forever. So Paul is attracted by performers and glamour that surrounds him. He would like to be a part of their world. He's hanging out at the hotel where these performers stay, and is observing them and wants to be a part of that world. So then you can apply that to how would Paul, act in another environment. So we start our quiz here, Unit 1, Lesson 24. And it says inside the items here, so questions asking you to predict an outcome or a character's behavior in another situation often have a depth knowledge of level 3. We're talking about critical thinking here, or some of the skills that we're trying to build. Although the question may not be difficult, it requires more steps in the thought process, right? So it furthers, if we're looking at this sort of in a hierarchy, right? Inferences starts first, and then conclusions, and then applying ideas, all building on the same type of skills. But by the time you get to applying ideas, you're thinking a little deeper about what you're reading. That's the idea here. All right. And for number 1, how about Tracy? Could you read question 1 for us?
Yes. If Paul were a character living in 2014, he would more likely become someone who A. follows rock groups, B. studies music at school, C. show artistic ability, D. has ambitions in the arts.
A, yeah. So he's particularly with that last bit, right? Paul had often hung about the hotel, watching people go in and out, longing to enter and leave school. I'm assuming either he is a student or he may work in a school. We need a little more information there to figure that out. But he wants to leave his other life behind. It doesn't really imply that he would be interested in going to music school. He does like music, obviously, with the symphony, but he seems to be a little more drawn just to that creative lifestyle and the culture behind it, not necessarily being an artist himself. So he would follow rock groups. 1.
Could I know the rock here meaning? What the meaning of the rock here?
Roll. Like rock music. Does that help? So like rock and roll music. So yeah, that does kind of sound weird just by itself. But he's talking about like the genre of music. that type of
the
music.
kind of music.
Yeah.
I see.
I can see where that could be confusing if you just see follow rock groups, not rock people or anything, just yeah, the music there. Okay, yeah, so what's A, and picnic in the country. So we have a new section here. Grace, you want to read the first paragraph for us?
Oh, okay. A picnic in the country. People born into the tradition of English country life are accustomed to as eccentric house. Mrs. Leslie and her daughter.
You got a lot on your hands there right now?
Yeah, Mrs. Leslie and her daughter Belinda accepted the hour with vague, acknowledging smiles. Her son-in-law, Leo Copper, a Londoner whose contacts with nature had been made at the very expensive pleasure resorts patronized by his very rich parents, found midday hoots disconcerting and almost said so, but did not as he was just then in a temper and wholly engaged in not showing it.
Okay, Sasha Gay, you want to read paragraph 2?
Okay. He was in a temper for several reasons, all eminently adequate. For one thing, impelled by the nervous appetite of frustration, he had eaten a traditional country breakfast, and it was disagreeing with him. For yet another, he had been called out on yet another of his mother-in-law's picnics. Finally, there was a picnic basket. The picnic basket was a family piece. The picnic basket was a family piece dating, as Mrs. Leslie said, on its very appearance for an age of footmen. It was the size of a cabin trunk, built for eternity out of red wicker, equipped with massy cutlery and crockery. Time had sharpened its red fangs, and however Leo took hold of it, they lacerated him. Also, it caused him embarrassment to be seen carrying a rattling, creaking monstrosity, and today he had carried it further than usual. From Healthy Landscape with Dormouse by Sylvia Townsend Warner, 1966.
Okay, so just pointing out, right, you know, this rather old, rickety picnic basket that must be really large, and you know, wicker will start coming apart. And that's what's talking about, like it's poking him as he's carrying it and he's jostling it around. So Christiana, you want to read question 2?
Okay. Question 2. Leo's exposure to nature has been at very expensive resorts. Paragraph 1. Which situation does his experience at the picnic most resemble? A. A person living in the
Suburbs.
Okay, a person living in the suburbs takes a train to the city to see a show. B. A corporate executive does not know how to saddling a horse on a trail ride. C, a graphic designer living in the city knows a surprising amount of information about sheep. D, a banker living in a big city checks her email whilst on vacation on the mountain. Is it D?
It's B as a boy. So this one's a little weird, but it's basically saying it's like, okay, for Leo, he's a little bit out of place when it comes to this picnicking thing. He's a well-to-do guy, and doesn't necessarily get out. And when it makes the case that he his exposure to nature has been at very expensive resorts. So him being outside is usually because it's in like a resort town or a hotel, maybe like an expensive beach or something like that. And that is similar, to say a corporate executive. So somebody that is high up in a corporation, like on a board or something like that, doesn't know how to saddle a horse on a trail ride. So something that's a little more rural involved, a little bit more country, they might be out of place on a horse. So that's kind of the connection they're making there. The other ones, just don't have that same feel to them. A person living in the suburbs taking a train to the city, they might be used to that. A graphic designer that knows about sheep, and a banker living in a big city checks her email while on vacation in the mountains. That actually sounds like something most people would do. The idea here is that somebody is out of place, and that's the connection. So B is in boy for 2, and our same passage for 3. Let's go back up to Sasha Gay again. How about read 3 for us?
Okay. Leo says that he has been hauled out on yet another of his mother-in-law's picnics, which is the most logical prediction to make on the basis of the connotation of hauled out and of the note of the sentence. Leo probably will A, arrange his own picnic, B, dislike the picnic, C, refuse to carry the basket, D, ask to reschedule the event. Is it A?
So it's
B.
It's B, yeah. You're thinking about tone, style, word choice. Of course, hauled, or if you're hauling something, you're carrying something. Just like you haul, just like the trucks. And in this case, it sounds like burden, right? If you're hauled out, Leo states he's been hauled out on yet another of his mother-in-law's picnics. That is something, if you were saying I was hauled out to go do this, you're not going to enjoy it, right? So B as a boy for number 3. Okay. And let's go to Grace for number 4 here. Question 4.
Okay. Each time Mrs. Leslie uses the picnic basket, it tells people that it was first used in an age of footmen, paragraph 2. On the basis of Mrs. Leslie's character, which prediction is the most accurate? Mrs. Leslie probably will A, keep her family's wealth a secret, B, make anonymous donations to charity, C, find excuses to brag about her family, and D, be modest about her family's achievements. Is it C or D?
It's C, yeah, or C for 4. Footman, this is one, it's kind of weird because you have to know what a footman is, right? But that's basically a servant. And, this is, it's in London. So, you would have footmen to carry stuff like that. So when it's saying that the, picnic basket is old as the age of footman, she would have had somebody, carry it for her. So in this case, you could kind of think that this is also somebody that's well-to-do and wealthy and would find excuses to brag about her family. So 4 is C. And number 5, Tracy, you want to read number 5?
Yes. Given a choice of leisure activities, Leo most probably would choose a weekend at a 5-star hotel, B, a week of camping in the national park, C, frogging a new trail in a rainforest, D, stay at home and watch a movie. B.
So A.
A.
Yeah, weekend in a 5-star hotel. So thinking about, one of our previous questions about up here where, Leo's exposure to nature has been at very expensive resorts. That lends itself to he would most likely like to stay in a 5-star hotel. He seems to be out of sorts, not comfortable in natural settings. So the rest of those might not fit so well with him, right? Going to camping in a national park, forging a trail through a rainforest. Yeah, staying at home watching old movies, that might apply to him. But we know he seems to have a taste for sort of the upper crust, right? The high society. So A would fit with him, a weekend at a 5-star hotel. And Christiana, how about you read number 6 for us?
Okay, number 6. Based on the on the basis of the event in the passage, Leo's personality and your period knowledge of plots in fiction, which prediction about story events is most likely probable. A. Leo will leave his family at the picnic and return to London. B. To please her husband, Brenda will convince her mother not to have another picnic. C. Leo will pay the price for his bad humor and action. D. Whilst carrying the picnic basket, Leo will get injured. Is it D?
Close, but it's C. Leo is probably going to pay the price for his bad humor. The picnic basket probably is going to injure him severely. It's more that it's inconvenient, and it's just kind of frustrating and aggravating that this thing keeps like poking him. But kind of thinking about plot and things like that, this is probably not going to work out for Leo. Something's going to happen. So when it says, Leo will pay the price for his bad humor, meaning his disposition, his behavior, and his actions. So something's going to happen here that's not in the favor of Leo. So 6 is C. And that's the last one for the quiz. So 1 was A, 2 was B as in boy, 3 also B as in boy, 4 was C, 5 was A, and 6 was C. All right. All right. And on to the workbook. So again, when we apply ideas, you can make predictions or generalizations based on your own knowledge and the details found in the story. When you apply ideas, you identify patterns and use logic to determine what a character might do or say in another situation. That's what I was talking about. What would that person do if put in a different situation, knowing things about their personality, their behavior, their physical, appearance? How's that going to affect them in a different situation? And then you also can make predictions about what might happen to the character or draw parallels between the character situation and other circumstances. Right? That's the idea there. Okay, and now we're back to Paul, right? For Paul's case, this is the young man who was enjoying the symphony, likes that sort of creative lifestyle. And it says, yet it was but a day since he had been sulking in the traces, but yesterday afternoon that he had been sent to the bank with Denny and Carson's deposit, as usual, but this time he was instructed to leave the book to be balanced. There was above $2,000 in checks and nearly $1,000 in the banknotes, which he had taken from the book and quietly transferred to his pocket. At the bank, he had made out a new deposit slip. His nerves had been steady enough to permit of his returning to the office where he had finished his work and asked for a full day's holiday tomorrow, Saturday, giving a perfectly reasonable pretext. The bank book, he knew, would not be returned before Monday or Tuesday, and his father would be out of town for the next week. From the time he slipped the banknotes into his pocket until he boarded the night train for New York, he had not known a moment's hesitation. It was not the first time Paul had steered through treacherous waters. And so at the top, it says under the pointing to the underlying passage there, Paul had been sulking the day before. This behavior indicates that he was likely upset about something before he took the money. So, look for descriptive words like that as far as how they're describing a character in a situation. He had been sulking. So he's pouting, he's moody, something's going on there. And then secondly, under text box B, it says the narrator says that it was not the first time Paul had steered through treacherous waters. Paul seems to be used to trouble and danger. And what we garner from this passage is that he's basically stealing, right? He took a deposit book to the bank to be balanced, and he made a new deposit slip. So he's taking money, and he's done this on the weekend, so he knows that it will not be discovered until he goes to New York. So it sounds like he's skipping town with some of his father's money is the idea behind that. So let's start workbook. And making assumptions then. It says you can make assumptions about characters from what you know about their behavior. Unless an author explains that a character has changed, you can infer future behavior from past behavior. So this, once you establish certain character traits, things that a character is likely to do, they kind of fall into that. That's the way you predict their actions. It's the way a writer is going to predict their actions as they continue to write about that character. When I put this character in the situation, how will they react? And it would take more information to change that. So number one, how about Sasha Gay? You want to read number one for us?
It says, according to the passage, Paul's behavior shows A, strong sense of integrity, B, questionable judgment and morals, C, an exceptionally strong work ethic, or D, caution and careful planning. Is it A?
So
No,
B.
no, B.
Yeah, B. He's probably lacking in integrity because it sounds like he's skipping town with some of his father's money. So yeah, questionable judgment and morals. He's going to bend the rules, most likely to get his way or get what he wants. So B is in boy for one. Two, the same passage. Grace, you want to read question two?
Sorry. Okay. Which is the most accurate prediction to make about the situation? Which is the most accurate prediction to make about how the situation will turn out for Paul? A, he will use the money to start a new life in New York. B, after enjoying his trip, he will return to his job. C, he will feel guilty and admit when he has and admit he has done and admit what he has done. And D, things likely will end badly when his crime is discovered. D,
Yeah, probably not going to go well for him. And again, that's thinking about plot, thinking about building, tension in a story and things like that. If he just goes to New York and there's no repercussions for it, that's not much of a story. He goes to use the money to start a new life in New York, returning back to his job. Also, that's not very interesting if there's no repercussions for what he did, and feeling guilty and admit that what he's done. Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but Paul, what we've seen about him doesn't seem to be the type that's going to feel guilty about it. This is very calculated what he's done, and he's skipping town with this money, so probably not going to feel guilty. That leaves D, which means he's probably going to, encounter something when the crime's discovered, in the next week. So D is in dog 2. And a new passage here, the aging process. Tracy, you want to read?
Yes.
Number 3.
The aging process. In the large Spanish-style house she and my father had shared for 35 of the nearly 50 years of marriage, a black and white Hollywood-style studio portrait of my mother as a well-lived ingenious circa 1940, hand framed on the stucco wall over the fireplace. Other than that, you could never guess what bride she once took in her beauty. No facelift or I took for Margaret Beast. At 74, she could no sooner go under the knife for the sake of appearing 5 or 6 years younger than by a dress simile, because it were marked down. The same goes for reinforced undergarments. Costly motorizers holding out the promise of eternal youth, and hair rings, the various burnished hues of expensive luggage. I rather look inside, she sniffed, than pathetic. Mother is a bright specimen of what most women claim to want, even while desperately doing everything within their grasp to prevent it. Growing gold gracefully, only traces remain of the ashy-lidded gray moth wind over the fireplace that make a mockery of my own craft. Self-conscious talk womanhood. Her weathered beauty has taken on a kind of monolithic status, more akin to Mount Rushmore than Richard Hayworth. From the Price of Tea in China by Alan Guru, 1998.
All right. So just what was that word? Oh yeah, a black and white Hollywood style studio portrait of my mother as a wet lipped. I think it's ingenue, and I'm kind of guessing at that too. But it's like a young innocent woman that, and it kind of applied to actresses and things. Sometimes a little bit unsophisticated at ingenue. But overall, what we're seeing in this passage, right, is someone talking about, and this is in the first person, right? We talked about point of view. This is a first person point of view about a woman viewing the aging of her mother. And along with that her mother is sort of accepted, you know, her aging, and is, you know, what she says here, you know, what every woman claimed they want to do, but do everything to prevent it, growing old gracefully. So she's not really worried so much about her looks, you know, preserving it through, you know, facelifts or using a bunch of products and everything. She's just kind of becoming natural, which is what is stated here in the end, you know, whether beauty taking kind of monolithic status more like Mount Rushmore than Rita Hayworth. So this sort of natural aging that she's adopting. So for number 3, Christiana, you want to read question 3 for us?
And number 3, from the from the information in the passage, what opinion would you expect Margaret's husband to have about her current appearance? A, he probably wishes that she would try harder to look as she did when she was younger. B, he probably thinks that she could be more careful about her appearance. C, he is probably happy that she is growing older gracefully. D, he is probably glad that she is no longer attractive to others. Is this C?
Yeah, C. He's probably happy that she's, you know, growing old gracefully, and she's happy with herself. So C for number 3, and then 4. How about Sasha Gay? You want to read 4?
Margaret says that she would rather look ancient than pathetic. Which example best illustrates this statement? A new custom detailed sports car. B, a car with hybrid technology. C, a 1950s convertible restored to its original state. Or D, a well-maintained 10-year-old sedan. Was it C or D?
D. Yeah, D. That's a very odd comparison, comparing an aging woman with an automobile. You know, I'm more like a busted 1997 Toyota Tacoma with the missing headlight, I think, at this point. But you know, that's, you know, this is one way we can kind of analyze character and stuff. You know, what other sort of ideas does it sound like? Does it illustrate? And she's obviously not a new custom detailed sports car. She's an aging lady. A car with hybrid technology would be also something that's new and flashy and current. A 1950s convertible restored to its original state. You know, restored to its original state would indicate maybe some cosmetic surgery, right? That there's other things going on. But in her case, you know, rather look ancient than pathetic. So a well-maintained, you know, older car. If it's well-maintained, you know, tires are good, the paint's good, all of that, and it runs well. That's not necessarily pathetic, right? It's just, it's well used, nothing fancy. So D as in dog for number 4. And then 5, how about Grace? You want to read question 5 for us?
Okay. The narrator says that her mother is growing old gracefully. Paragraph 2. On the basis of the tone of the passage, the narrator will mostly probably describe her mother as A, old-fashioned, B, practical, C, arrogant, and D, pathetic. Is it A?
So B, practical. You know, that you know, kind of lends itself to being sensible, being realistic. So she's realistic about her aging. She's not, trying to, be something she's not. So not necessarily old fashioned, right? It doesn't mean that she's, not willing to accept new ways. That's more akin to thinking about new ideas and things like that. This is more about her looks and how she feels about getting older. So B as in boy for number 5. And 6, Tracy, how about number 6?
Yes. On the basis of the narrator's description, Margaret is a person who most likely A. is sensible, helpful meals, B. spends long hours at the gym, C. enjoy Hollywood social events, D. shops frequently for bargains. C.
So A,
A.
going along with her being practical and modest. So she probably eats sensible, and again, she takes care of herself, but she's not necessarily concerned too much about her looks. So she's healthy, she's sensible, so she probably eats sensible meals. Me, I spend long hours in the gym and I eat garbage and I wind up with the same results. So 6, yeah, A for number 6. And then 7, let's go to Christiana. How about you read number 7 for us?
Okay. The number 7 says, the narrator says that her mother does not use expensive moisturizers or hair greens on the basis of her preference, which response is Margaret most likely to make to a department store click offering free samples of beauty products. A. This is just my color. B. I can't afford this. C. No, but thank you. D. Lovely. May I have another? Is it A or B?
C. So, thinking about, if you were to put this lady, walking through a department store and somebody's asking for free samples, with beauty products, knowing that she doesn't really use expensive moisturizers or hair rinses, she might just pass that along, right? She'd say no, but thank you. She certainly won't make much of a deal about it, right? She's not going to say lovely or anything like that. So most likely she's just going to pass them by, right? I'm going to go ahead and read this one, and we got some drag and drop activity afterwards. So we're going to think about here, the character, this person Belinda. So we'll think about putting Belinda in a different situation, how she may react as we read here. So Belinda is angry. Belinda walks exactly like her father. She walks beautifully. Yes, doesn't she? I wonder where she's going. She seems to be making for the car. Perhaps she has left something in it, or perhaps she wants to move it into the shade. She has always been so fond of it. She learned to drive when she was 12. Belinda was certainly walking towards the car. They watched her cross the cattle bridge and get into the car. They saw her start the car, turn it, and drive away. So now they know. Belinda spoke in the tone of one who has achieved some stern moral purpose, or they soon will. Belinda was one of those fortunate persons who fly into rage as though into a refrigerator. Walking across the heath in the glaring post-meridian sun, she felt the film of ice encasing her, armoring her from head to toe in sleekness and invulnerability.
Whoa.
She felt too a smile on her lips, becoming rigid and corpse-like. When she got into the car, though it was As hot as an oven, she seemed to be adjusting the hands of a marble effigy on the wheel. The car smell, so familiar, so much part of her life, waylaid her with its ordinary sensuality, besought her to have a good cry, but righteousness sustained her. The whole afternoon was before her. She could go where she pleased. The whole afternoon was also before Leo and her mother, and a wide range of reflections. For there on the heath, with not a soul in sight, they would have to remain till she drove back to collect them. So, we heard about Leo before in the picnic, and this seems like to be maybe towards the end of the day there, and Belinda is leaving them in the car. So let's see here. 8. So drag and drop Belinda's possible actions into the correct location on the chart. So Belinda would. What would Belinda do?
Walk away silently.
Yeah, from an angry person, right? Walk away silently from an angry person. What else would Belinda do?
Maintain a controlled appearance.
Right. And process of elimination, they didn't leave us much guesswork here, right? So
Yeah.
she's unlikely to cry and apologize immediately after upsetting someone, and not the type to yell and scream when angry. And of course, that doesn't mean that she doesn't get angry, right? It doesn't say that she's not upset about things, but she's the type of person that she's maybe kind of internalizes them, but she's going to walk away. I'll walk away. I'm going to get in the car and I'm just going to leave. And the whole time she's going to have, at least on the outside, this facade where she's in control. So yeah, for number 8 there, Belinda would walk away silently from an angry person. She would maintain a controlled appearance. She's unlikely to cry and apologize immediately after upsetting someone, and yell and scream when angry. Okay. Got a few more here. So another passage. This one's all short stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and read this one too. It's preparing for the party. And this is The Garden Party by Catherine Mansfield from 1922. So, preparing for the party. Good morning, she said, copying her mother's voice. But that sounded so fearfully affected that she was ashamed and stammered like a little girl. Oh, have you come? Is it about the Marquis? His smile was so easy, so friendly, that Laura recovered, and now she looked at the others. Cheer up. We won't bite, their smile seemed to say. How very nice workmen were, and what a beautiful morning. She mustn't mention the morning. She must be businesslike. Well, what about the lily lawn? I don't fancy it, said he. Not conspicuous enough. You see, with a thing like a marquee, you want to put it somewhere where it'll give you a bang, slap in the eye, if you follow me. Laura's upbringing made her wonder for a moment whether it was quite respectful of a workman to talk to her of bangs, slap in the eye. But she did quite follow him. A corner of the tennis court, she suggested, but the band's going to be in one corner. I'm going to have a band, are you? Said another of the workmen. He was pale. He had a haggard look as his dark eyes scanned the tennis court. What was he thinking? Only a small band, said Laura gently. Perhaps he wouldn't mind so much if the band was quite small, but the tall fellow interrupted. Look here, miss, that's the place, against those trees over there. That'll do fine. Against the Caracas. Then the Caraca trees would be hidden, and they were so lovely, with their broad, gleaming leaves and their clusters of yellow fruit. They were like trees you imagined growing on a desert island, proud, solitary, lifting their leaves and fruits to the sun in a kind of silent splendor. Must they be hidden by a marquee? They must. Already the men had shouldered their staves and were making for the place. Only the tall fellow was left. He bent down, pinched a sprig of lavender, put his thumb and forefinger to his nose, and snuffed up the smell. When Laura saw that gesture, she forgot all about the Caracas in her wonder at him caring for things like that, caring for the smell of lavender. How many men that she knew would have done such a thing? Oh, how extraordinarily nice workmen were, she thought. Why couldn't she have workmen for friends rather than silly boys she danced with and who came to Sunday night supper? She would she would get on much better with men like these. And question 9. So which situation is most similar to Laura's and the workman? So at paragraph 12, they must. Already the men had shouldered their staves, were making for the place. Only the tall fellow was left. He bent down, pinched a sprig of lavender. So we're talking about that paragraph in particular. So A, walking to the courtroom, a busy lawyer stops to watch an artist at work. B, a band manager has to decide where to put a sign promoting her band. C, while planting a new flower bed, a gardener sees a child pick one of the newly planted flowers. Or D, a factory worker spends her lunch hour walking in the park.
Is it A?
It's A, right? Walking to the courtroom, a busy lawyer stops to watch an artist. So she's doing her thing, but she sees these men working and appreciates them. So A for number 9. And let's see, Sasha Gay, you want to read 10 for us?
Laura likely would be most comfortable. A, on a camping trip. B, working on a farm. C, at a country club. Or D, selling garden supplies. Is it B?
C. She's a little fancy. Excuse me. Yeah, so C for the country club. She's a little proper and will probably be comfortable in that environment. Right. And let's see, 11. Grace, you want to read number 11?
All right. Which statement is the most likely prediction of how Laura would react if the workmen did a poor job in completing their work? A, she will refuse to pay them. She will demand that they complete the job to her satisfaction. C, she will make excuses for them. And D, she will be unlikely to notice. B.
So yeah, it's C.
C.
Yeah. She would make excuses for him. She seems the type, she's kind of easygoing. She might be kind of proper. She likes buying things, but considering her last paragraph there, oh, how extraordinarily nice the workmen were. She thought, why can she have workmen for friends rather than the silly boys she danced with? So she likes them, and she would probably make excuses for them. And then finally, our last one here, number 12. Tracy, you want to read 12 for us?
On the basis of the information in the passage, which is the most likely rendition about the plot of this story? The plot will involve A, the band hired to play at the party. B, Laura's attraction to the workmen. C, Laura's mother affectation. D, the boys with whom Laura dances. The boys with whom Laura dances. A.
B. Likely will be Laura's attraction to the workman, considering just what we have here in the one passage, right? So B is in boy for 12. And that is the last one there. Does anybody need any follow-up